Welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we are going to master the absolute fundamental mechanics of sentences. Look, if you've ever read one of those corporate emails that felt, overly evasive, or if you've ever struggled to make your own writing really punchy and persuasive, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to unlock the concepts of active and passive voice today, and we'll be giving you a clear, incredibly practical toolkit derived straight from our source material. Get ready, because you're about to look at sentences in a completely new and honestly, a really empowering way. Whenever you look at a sentence from now on, I want you to ask yourself this one fundamental question. Who is doing the action? Literally, that's it. This simple question is the absolute bedrock of what we call voice in grammar. And once you train your brain to instantly answer this, I promise you the rest of sentence construction becomes incredibly straightforward. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll hit 5 quick stops. 1. Defining voice in grammar. 2. Active voice, the doer. 3. Passive voice, the receiver. 4. The golden conversion rules. And finally, 5. A tenses and formulas masterclass. Okay, let's dive right into section 1, defining voice in grammar. So what is it? Voice is simply a grammatical form of a sentence that shows whether the subject does the action or receives the action. I actually like to think of understanding grammar a lot like understanding engine mechanics. Just like a car engine dictates how the wheels move and how the whole vehicle travels, grammatical voice basically dictates how the action of your sentence is delivered. A sentence is essentially just a little machine that transfers energy. And it all starts with identifying the engine's main operator, the doer, versus the thing being operated on, the receiver. In English, we have 2 main types of voice to express this energy transfer. Moving right along to section 2, active voice, also known as the doer. Let's start with the most common and direct engine type, where the spotlight is entirely on the doer. In the active voice, the subject performs the action. The mechanical structure here is brilliantly simple. It's just subject plus verb plus object. Bam, bam, bam. Look at our reliable test engine sentence here. Ram writes a letter. If you picture this in your head right now, who is doing the sweating? Ram is, right? He is clearly the one doing the actual work. The verb is writes, and the object receiving that action is a letter. Or take a look at Sita cooks food. Sita is the subject doing the action of cooking. It's a completely straight line of energy from the doer right through the action landing on the object. All right, shifting gears to section 3, passive voice, the receiver. So what happens when we want to let the receiver take center stage? Well, in the passive voice, the grammatical subject actually receives the action. We have a brand new structural formula here. Notice how the focus gracefully moves to the receiver. We start with the object, then we add a helping verb, then we add what we call a V3. Now don't let that intimidate you. V3 is simply grammar speak for the past participle form of a verb, like written or eaten. And finally, we finish with by the subject. So our test sentence transforms. It becomes, a letter is written by Ram. And our second example, it becomes, food is cooked by Sita. It's the exact same events, but with totally different staging. Now, what's really interesting here is looking at the stark contrast between the doer and the receiver side by side. On the left, we have Ram writes a letter. Ram is driving the sentence. On the right, a letter is written by Ram. The exact same facts are true, but now the letter is the star of the show. We aren't changing the reality of the situation at all. We are literally just changing where we point the camera. So the absolutely crucial point is knowing exactly why you would choose one over the other. And here is your incredibly easy to remember rule of thumb. Use active when the doer is important. Use passive when the receiver or the action itself is important. It's that simple. If you want to celebrate Ram's great writing habit, use active. But if you're marveling at this beautiful letter and just want to mention who made it as a secondary kind of background detail, use passive. Okay, section 4. The golden conversion rules. Now that we understand the philosophy, I promised you a mechanical toolkit. We are now going to physically rebuild our sentence engine using a foolproof, step-by-step process. This is basically the most important rule of our entire explainer today. To flip from active to passive, there are 3 distinct steps where the sentence parts simply swap places in this really cool X pattern. Step 1, the object moves up to the very front, taking over the subject position. Step 2, the original subject moves all the way to the back, landing in a new by plus object position. And step 3, the verb transforms into its V3, or past participle form. Let's actually test out our conversion rules right now on a brand new sentence. Ram eats mangoes. Okay, let's break it down together. The object is mangoes, the subject is ram, the verb is eats, and its V3 form is eaten. So following our rules, we move mangoes to the front, we move ram to the back with a by, and we drop in our V3. The result? Mangoes are eaten by ram. Now sure, it sounds a bit formal for just eating fruit, but mechanically, it works perfectly every single time. You are literally just plugging the pieces into their new slots. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the Tenses and Formulas Masterclass. Let's see how all of this builds across the broader landscape of the English language. Here is your ultimate cheat sheet for the present tenses. We've got simple present, present continuous, and present perfect. Now, hold on. I don't want you to get overwhelmed by all these formulas. Instead, I want you to look really closely at the passive formula column. Notice the brilliant, consistent pattern happening there. The passive voice always relies on that V3 form of the verb at the very end, right before the by plus subject. Honestly, instead of memorizing the whole grid, just listen to the pattern. A letter is written. A letter is being written. A letter has been written. The word written never, ever changes. That V3 is the unbreakable anchor of the passive engine. And look at what happens when we talk about what happened yesterday, moving seamlessly over to the past tenses. The exact same mechanical structure is beautifully preserved. The only thing that shifts here is the helping verb. Is simply becomes was or were. Has becomes had. But the rest, you still move the object to the front, you still drop in the V3, and you still put the subject at the end. Once you learn that core pattern, you've essentially mastered it for every tense. Just to round out our primary matrix, here are the future tenses, simple future and future perfect. And surprise, surprise, the logic still holds. Ram will write a letter, smoothly becomes a letter will be written by Ram. The future helping verbs like will or will have just slot right in, but the skeleton of the sentence remains exactly what we learned in our golden rules. Now, if you've been counting along with me, you might realize we've only covered 8 out of the 12 total English tenses. Which brings us to this very comforting number right here, 4. I absolutely love this part because it is going to save you a tremendous amount of time and mental effort. Out of the 12 total tenses in English, these 4 are practically never used in the passive voice. Seriously. They are present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, future continuous, and future perfect continuous. Our source material makes it crystal clear. You can just skip them. Trying to force these into a passive structure makes sentences incredibly clunky. Just imagine trying to say, the letter will have been being written by Ram. I mean, no way, right? It's an absolute nightmare. So your cognitive load is instantly reduced. You really only need to master the 8 formulas we just went over. We've covered a ton of structural ground today, from the basic definitions to the golden conversion rules, all the way through that tense matrix. But remember, grammar isn't just about following rigid rules. It's an incredible tool for directing your audience's attention exactly where you want it. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought and challenge. When you write your very next sentence, who will you consciously put in the spotlight? Will you drive the action forward with the doer in the active voice, or will you highlight the results by putting the receiver in the passive voice? The power to build that engine is now completely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I can't wait to explore more incredible topics with you soon.